Thank you for taking the time to come and be part of TEDx Noir Libraries 2020. All around our region and state, across the country, and around the globe, people just like you and me are hungry for ideas and information. We all want to know more. We want to imagine, and we want to understand. And TEDx events are organized to provide opportunities to connect us with ideas worth spreading. TEDx has lent Snow Libraries its name and approach, allowing us to independently organize this local TED-like event. Because at its core, your public library is all about providing you with ideas and information. And together with TEDx, we have worked to share some of these ideas with you. Now, the really hard work to make this happen has come from each featured speaker and all those who have worked with them behind the scenes. So we invite you to sit back and imagine you are sitting in the largest theater ever. You are appropriately social distance in this virtual space where other members of the audience are all choosing to be present. We are all expectant. We're ready to think deeply. And we are reimagining the quantum connections between ideas and realities.
10, 9, 8,
and now,
7,
on with the show.
6.
Hi, and welcome to TEDx Snow Isle Libraries 2020. I'm your host, Phil Klein, and I'm here to share with you voices from our community who are shaping and reshaping our world for the better. In each of our online sessions, we'll be premiering a TEDx talk and having a conversation with the speaker to dig deeper into their ideas and into where we can go from here. In your homes or wherever you may be, and whatever you may be doing, we invite you to spend this hour with us to explore a wonderful set of new ideas. I'm with a team of moderators who will be facilitating questions so that whether you're joining us from the YouTube live stream or from Facebook or from our Zoom webinar, please feel free to ask questions at any time, and we'll include them during the interview portion of our event today. We really value you taking the time to be here, so thank you so much. Today, I'm joined by Jody Crimmins, who is a teacher at the Oak Harbor Public Schools. Welcome to TEDx Snow Isle Libraries, Jody. Thanks so much for joining us.
Yeah, thank you. So glad to be here.
You have been teaching for many years, and you have been spending a good deal of your time focusing on a gardening program at Oak Harbor Schools. Is there anything that you want to share about what led up to your giving this talk, so we get a little bit of a context before we show your video?
Oh, it's just such an honor to be here, and it's such an honor to be engaged in this work. It is, I've gotten to see firsthand how great it is for kids and for community. And I'm just honored to work with people across our community in Oak Harbor and across our state and across even our nation that believe in this. And I'm happy to share this work with all of you.
Thank you so much, Jody. And it's been really wonderful to watch you expand and grow your idea. And to our audience, I think you're in for a real treat with this talk by Jody Crimmins. Let's go ahead and roll and premiere your TEDx talk.
I'm a teacher for Oak Harbor Public Schools, where I teach school gardens and sustainability. We focus on student-centered, project-based learning and using school gardens and cafeterias as classrooms as a way to promote students as leaders in addressing climate change. I work with kids ages 4 through 18 on environmental and sustainability education, and I can tell you, our students are very worried about the future of the planet. We're starting to see the effects of what climate scientists have been telling us. We're using too much carbon and we're changing our world. We've been told we have until the year 2030 to reduce our carbon emissions by 45% in order to avoid a climate catastrophe. This is a 10-year window in which students I am working with today will still be in school. They want to help and they can't wait until the future. We owe it to them to allow them to contribute in developmentally appropriate ways. Last year, a senior at our high school stated that she was worried that people before were not thinking about the long-term effects of their actions. She went on to say that simple changes can make sure that generations to come do not suffer greater consequences. Environmental and sustainability education naturally spark interests in students. In order to address climate change in schools, it's important to start locally. Our schools are on an island in the Pacific Northwest. In the 1990s, our waste facility reached capacity, and we started transporting our garbage elsewhere. We currently bring it over 300 miles away to a facility along the Columbia River, and many adults in our community don't realize this. When we talk with our students about this, it shifts their thinking on consuming and waste. They jump into action and create healthy and sustainable solutions. Our students have designed and implemented a school-wide composting system that is moving our cafeterias towards zero waste. Kindergartners through sixth graders give up their recess to serve their community, running composting programs, standing by the bins to help students sort waste, educating their classmates on the process, feeding the worms, and harvesting the compost to add to their school gardens. According to data collected by our students, our efforts here have reduced our waste by 1/2 to 2/3. Actions by students are actively reducing our carbon footprint while providing many civic and learning opportunities. Students are mentoring other students, elementary kids are teaching high schoolers how to compost, and our Exceptional Academy kids are working with younger kids in mentorship programs, learning garden skills. Robotics team students are engineering solutions to everyday problems that occur in our gardens, from broken worm bin lids to building and designing outdoor learning classrooms, to opening accessibility for all using robotics in the garden. Working alongside young people so full of hope and ideas has inspired us to rethink what a classroom looks like. We are engaging students in different learning opportunities outdoors, and the results have been kids are happy, engaged, and know where their food comes from. They're more likely to eat their veggies if they grow them, and they love getting their hands dirty. They also love watching their work literally grow and bloom. They are proud of what they are doing. Our successes are starting to spread. As other districts are hearing about our students' green initiatives, they've been reaching out to find ways to start some of their own. I've learned so much from our kids, and I can tell you our programs basically begin with 4 things. First, start with what you already have. You have so many resources around you. Rethink your schoolyards and your cafeterias as classrooms. Look for opportunities for growth and change. This work is where our waste reduction program grew from. Second, partner. Partner with other classrooms, other schools, other districts. Find others interested in this work and form a partnership. There's power in collaboration, and working together helps develop important 21st century skills for our students, like collaboration and communication. Also, look to your community for partnerships. We partner with hardware stores, university extensions, Naval Air Station Whidbey Island, the city of Oak Harbor. The list goes on and on. These partnerships are invaluable because they strengthen our program, they provide resources, and most importantly, they give students authentic learning experiences and connections to their own community. Thirdly, invite everyone to the table. Whoever will be involved or impacted needs to have a voice, and that voice needs to be heard. Carefully consider all of your stakeholders and provide opportunities for communication and reflection. The more people you have on the team, the more sustainable your work will be. The fourth and final thing that our programs have in common is assessment. Assess. Start with data. Do a waste audit and determine what changes are needed. Measure and photograph a space that will become a garden. You are making a positive change. Make sure you document your journey. It's powerful to see your progress. At home, there are 3 things that I'd like you to consider. The first is plant a garden. Growing your own food really does taste better, and it reduces your carbon footprint. It can look many ways. Start with what you have. You can grow a backyard garden, a windowsill herb garden, or tomatoes on your deck. Whatever you do will make a difference. Secondly, compost. Composting is easy, and it turns your garbage into gold. It makes beautiful soil for your garden while reducing your waste bill. If you don't have a compost bin, it's easy to look up simple solutions to fit your needs. A quick internet search will provide plans to build structures or modify plastic totes that could fit under your sink. Finally, take inspiration from our former student. Think about the world you are leaving behind for future generations. Simple changes can make sure future generations do not need to suffer great consequences. Thank you for listening, and thank you for caring.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. This is the moment where on stage I would be watching as you listen to the applause of an audience that's taking in this, concentrated, dense, important information. You really, set out to share a lot of knowledge there, didn't sugarcoat things, but provided a lot of really positive actions that people can take from wherever they're at. What's it like for you to kind of see this play out, and what are you thinking after you share some?
I missed the last part of your question.
Sorry.
I'm sorry.
What do you find yourself thinking about after you finish this talk and you hear what some people may be responding to in both the challenge of facing climate change and the need to do positive action, and holding those two together?
Well, climate change is a huge problem, and but the solutions, it'll take a lot of solutions on many levels, but many of them can be something that we do have a little bit of control over by simply being mindful. And just watching this along right now, what my biggest takeaway was is community, like seeing the pictures of our students and co-teachers and staff that are all engaged in this work together, and seeing the friendly faces that believe in this, that it really, it just recharges my battery and reminds me of how important this is and how we are in it together.
Yes, and so have you been hearing from some of the students who were in previous years, and what is it that they're saying about what it's been like for them since they've kind of learned this? What is it like? We are living in that world in a way after people have been learning and experiencing, how to grow your own food and so on.
Yeah, so about this work I was so fortunate to work at Hillcrest Elementary, where there were teachers that were engaged in this work before I arrived there. But as we got together and under the leadership of an amazing principal, Paula Seaman, we were able to do our first application for National Green Ribbon recognition, which is actually a template for how to engage in this work. It gives you like a tool that says, these are some things to consider. Where are you on this metric? And when we use that tool, all of a sudden, we started just putting the kids in charge of these projects. And as their successes grew, so did the program. So it started with a worm bin that Donna Smith, Tristy Nielsen, and I put in the yard. And then that worm bin became a more robust garden, which honestly was being built one teacher at a time, one student at a time over the years. And it all came together. And then our school shared with the neighbor school next door. And then those kids went to middle school. And the middle school was saying, hey, we need this here too. So the program really grew from our students just starting in one schoolyard to expanding to all the elementaries, to then graduating up to different programs. And then we had kids as young as first graders explaining to high schoolers how they could engage in this work. And the High School Ecology Club came down and learned from our kids. So it's been really exciting to watch this grow from student-led action and kind of go through our entire district and onward to here we are today, just by the actions that these kids are taking.
It's amazing the breadth and depth and reach of this. You start with something small, and it seems to continue to grow or mushroom and flourish like a garden. Mm-hmm. And then you arrive at this green ribbon kind of level. All the while, young people are learning things that will help them to be healthier, to have skills that they'll need and will be able to use their entire lifetimes. It's a bit of a breathtaking expanse that you just laid out there in a few sentences. could you share a little bit about kind of what is the opening start for something like this? Imagine a school where, I know this, I mean, maybe this is more and more rare, but a school that doesn't have a garden yet. But how does a school that doesn't have a garden, or parents whose kids are at a school with no garden, how do they begin that first worm bin project or something like that?
There's a lot of help out there. They don't do it alone, right? Look to your community, and there's tools like I should mention Washington Green Schools, which is an organization, a nonprofit organization, has tools available online, and they will actually mentor you and help you through the program. So if you're just like, where do I go? That would be a great place to start. But I need to say that every school is located, at least now, at a location that has a yard and has dirt. And if you have dirt, you can have a garden. And if you take your spaces and you make them beautiful, kids feel happier about being there. And if you let the kids be the ones that garden and tend that soil, they care more about it and they become invested in it, and it becomes their place. And that's really what schools should be, is a place that belongs to them.
Yes. So in this, altered environment where kids are spending more time at home, can you talk about how someone who maybe has a yard and a garden can start to engage and involve their kids, maybe younger kids as well as maybe middle schoolers? How can they begin that process if they've gardened themselves a little bit but haven't really practiced teaching or engaging and involving the kids?
Well, it's I should caution you, it's addictive. Like once you start a garden, oh my gosh, it's so much fun, and I think that you'll be hooked. But just growing anything that you can in your space will help, and it's so fun to watch things develop from seed to plant, and watch those natural cycles of life as the seasons turn, and realize that we're a part of something, something bigger than ourselves. So gardening is a great first step, but there's also things you can do with your kids at home. Like there's activities like a sit spot, if you just wanted to give kids something to do that was like outside in their natural world, and you didn't have a large space. Just encourage them to go outside and pick a place every day that they can sit and reflect and feel and notice and look around. And even writing and journaling about what they're seeing and doing, they start to learn about the patterns over time, and kind of get connected and form a relationship with the earth that they live on, the place that they live. There's a lot of fun apps like iNaturalist, or Merlin the bird app, or I use PlantNet. There's a lot of fun apps out there that you can find that you can engage in citizen science, where you can go out and identify what the plants are or the birds are in your area, and start to learn what's normal and natural where you live, which is actually really cool and exciting. And then these apps themselves, you can also help with projects like identifying invasive species of plants, so that we can get teams out to help kind of mitigate that so they don't take over. So a kid as young as they can operate a smartphone can take a photo of something and help the scientific community protect the land. And that's pretty exciting.
Yeah, that is exciting. And a sit spot sounds like it's simple enough that even if you don't have any garden space, if you're, in a smaller place or in an apartment without a yard, you could still actually find a good way to do that. If someone doesn't have their own yard or garden space now, what's some ways that they can get closer to, fingers in the dirt and starting to have that journey?
Volunteer. We have such a great, beautiful natural state that we live in Washington here, and we have state and community parks that are open and available. And there's a ton of opportunities if you wanted to just get out and hike and enjoy. There's a ton of beautiful spaces that are accessible to all people. They're here for people to get outside. And with that, contacting your park offices or engaging in your local community, there are service projects you can do if you wanted to help right where you are at. And that's really meaningful and great. If your school does have a garden, you can volunteer there. That's a space for you as well. And it helps with the garden. And often you end up with fresh vegetables if your school is growing them.
And are there ways someone is asking about how we could use the shorelines and tap some of our coastal areas as well? Are there things that the people can do outdoors that would be relevant in that kind of sense?
Absolutely. I used to volunteer for for the Marine Resources Committee, which is a group of scientists that are working on local projects to protect our Salish Sea. So you can get engaged with your local chapter of that, and they can connect you with things like like eelgrass monitoring or looking for forage fish. And just going out and looking and noticing and reporting your data back can help the scientific community protect the Salish Sea and protect our shorelines. And also there's an organization called Junior Sea Doctors that actually does a lot of education, and they provide resources for families that are interested in engaging and working on shorelines and protecting the Salish Sea. So there's a lot out there if you're interested in that.
So we're clearly not alone, right? There are lots of places and ways to plug in. I'm assuming some of them are still good options, when people are socially distanced. Do you happen to know of volunteer programs that are still active in times and maintain social distancing rules as well at this time? Are you aware of those?
Absolutely. Most service and scientific organizations are adapting for the social distance recommendations, maintaining 6 feet of distance, using face coverings if you can't do that, sanitizing, hand washing, all of those things are applying to service. So you can still get out and do that, especially outdoors. But then I would bring you back to like community science, citizen science apps like iNaturalist, where you can be in charge of this digital community and be out with just you and your family and still connect with the community that way.
Great. So let's, so we've kind of talked about that scale from individual to family and then to, community. Let's talk a little bit about the school component. Obviously schools are in a unique situation right now, but there's still places where people are connected and where young people will have an ongoing relationship for all the coming years. So how can they start to connect with your ideas a little bit more actively? Maybe you could give an example of a school where they've taken some of the program information that you've developed and gone in their own direction with it. Can you give some examples of that?
So Wahluke School District comes to mind when you say that. There are partners across the state. They live on the Columbia River Gorge. They have a farming community there. And I happened to help them. I got called over to help them out a little while ago, just kind of give them some ideas. And they took it and ran with it. And they have developed some wonderful sustainability programs. We're now collaborating and helping each other out from across the state. And I'm so excited to know now that they've been recognized as a National Green Ribbon School thanks to all of their efforts. And it's neat to watch them grow and expand and go in different directions because they're in a different geographical location and with a different group of community. And so it's kind of neat to see that translate across the state.
Yeah, so certainly we have a lot of schools that are in farming communities, as well as some that are in cities, some that are in, more or less suburban or rural areas. Are there examples where each of those have developed school gardens? And maybe you could share a little bit about how that might connect with a cafeteria or other kinds of school-related facilities or programs, and how parents can kind of start to connect if they're either not already part of a school organization or if they have only a superficial connection with the schools.
I think immediately about our friends at South Whidbey School Farms. They have a wonderful program there where they grow the food and they put it in their cafeteria, and they're doing a great job of that. And to connect to the community during this crisis, they sent home kale starts to families, and they said, grow this and then bring it back to us and we'll plant it. So, and then they also produce videos of how things are going. So if you can't make it to the garden because of safety, they bring the garden to you through videos. So they're coming up with some great and innovative ways to continue the work and to let people know we're still here. We'll be back together again soon. And here's how you can participate in the meantime.
So we can grow our roots together as we spend time apart. That's a beautiful, beautiful image of plants growing in people's gardens, which is really what children are doing as they're growing up, even when they are deeply a part of a school community. That's really, really great. So when you think a little bit more deeply about some of the more hard questions around some of the challenging attitudes that are a normal part of dealing in a world that's facing climate change and facing that at a local level, how are you helping kids have a healthy relationship with climate change while still learning to face the information in the news that they are exposed to on a regular basis?
Well, I can tell you, kids as young as kindergarten are aware of this problem. So while it is not developmentally appropriate to give them the full scale and depth of the of this problem and how dark it is, it is not okay to ignore the fact that they've heard something and not honor that they want to help. And so we look at at environmental literacy as basically you need to have a relationship with the land and understand the land and be at a place where you can then work to save the land. So when you're in kindergarten, we're going to teach you about weather and climate, but we're not going to teach you necessarily about climate change, about humans impacting the environment in a negative way. We're going to teach you about the patterns. But when you bring up the fact that you've noticed or you've heard, we're going to honor that and have a discussion. But we're going to keep it developmentally appropriate. So we're focusing on the patterns and the information and simple actions that you can take. When you get into middle school, we're going to start talking about taking action, writing your representatives, coming up with different ways that you can kind of take a more active role in solving the climate crisis. But we're not going to address that until you're developmentally of an age where it's a little more appropriate. Because while it's a scary problem, we're not going to get through it with fear. And so we don't need to be promoting fear, especially with our children. We need to keep them safe and protected, while honoring the fact that they do have great ideas and solutions. And honestly, some of the simple solutions that come from the mouth of first graders are revolutionary. And if we just were to do that, we would not have a problem. So.
Well, I don't want to let that one go by. What is it that you think we should be learning from the kids in your classrooms as non-kids? Some of us may be non-kids. What are you learning from them, and what would you like to amplify?
We're jaded. We're jaded and we're cynical, and it's because we've been weathered and beat down as we get older. So, like, I'm speaking for myself, but the first graders and kindergartners and our early elementary, they're not. They're full of hope, and they see it. They can see the pathway as clear as day. They're like, just don't do this. Just take care of each other. Just be considerate of what you're using. Be mindful. Don't take things you don't need. Don't take things that belong to someone else. Don't use more than you have to. I mean, they understand this, whether they're using a glue stick or planting a garden. And it's like, it's revolutionary that we take these ideas and we make them so complicated, and we get hurt. And over time, that causes us to respond in different ways, and we become cynical. But if we were just to listen to these kids, the solutions can be much more simple. Just take care of each other and be mindful.
So by being better listeners, it sounds like we can almost directly become better adults. And that only seems like it would help our young people to grow in better ways also, right? I mean, if we can be those listening, hope receptive listeners to their hopes and to help them grow it. A friend of mine was telling me recently that listening is addictive. And so, yes, I think that's a great note to take, that we need to listen to the voices of our young people.
What's really exciting too, as they get a little bit older, they haven't been programmed the way we have. So we like to, like myself, I'm speaking for myself, you could think of, this is the way we've always done it. Well, they're not programmed that way. They don't know the way we've always done it. And if it doesn't make sense to them, they will call that out. And so just allowing kids to have that voice is so valuable, because it's a perspective that I think we all need. You know, they have great solutions.
And you've talked about kids being empowered. What is, can you unpack that a little bit? Like, what does it mean for young people to really be empowered? What happens when they take initiative or that's given to them? And how can we help with that as adults?
I think it's just creating and constantly, like myself as an educator, I'm constantly checking myself to make sure that it's student-centered. It's not about me. It's not about the teacher. It's about the student. I'm there to serve the student and to raise the student up and to listen to their voice and to keep them safe and to help them learn the ideas that have been put forward that they need to learn. But I know what they need to learn, and they need to teach me how they need to learn it. So sometimes the way they learn things is by solving big problems, like how do we get rid of our waste? And in doing that, there's 6 or 7 of in teachers speak the standards, right, that we have to be teaching that they're just naturally doing, because those are skills that you need to solve a problem. And when it comes down to it, what education is giving kids the skills they need to live in the world. So allowing them to use that, you know, and in elementary school and in middle school and in high school really prepares them better, and it makes them more engaged because they're interested, they're doing it, they're not just being told all of these great things that some other person did somewhere else. They're a part of the solution, and that really engages them.
And as they take on these bigger problems, are you hearing them voice a kind of future that they want to see themselves living in?
Absolutely.
Can you share with us what you're hearing from the kids about what is the world they want to live in?
Well, what they really want is the things that we all want. They want to live together in harmony, and they want to have a planet that continues to exist and thrive. These are opportunities that they deserve too. And so while we can't, especially in the younger grades, tackle all of those things, what they're seeing in fourth grade, when they've changed the system of their school, when they've educated high schoolers and they've talked to representatives.
Elementary schools are educating high
they
schoolers.
are. They're wonderful. They're really, yes. Yeah.
That's a hard image. So, like what? A fourth grader might be talking to a 10th grader and
yes, we've had that. And when we have groups like people come in to tour and see what's going on, it's the students that lead, and it's the students that answer the questions. So that's the shift. This is their program. And if they can't answer the questions, we haven't done a good enough job preparing them to own the program. I shouldn't be the one talking up there. They should be the ones with the voice. They should be able to articulate and explain. And it's my job to support them, to give them all of the tools they need to do that. And as they get that empowerment, they see, wow, I can make a difference. I just did make a difference in my community, whether that's in my classroom or in my school or in the town. They've seen they have the power to make a difference. So then as they move up through the grades and they go into their careers someday, they're not wondering, what can I do? They know it. They know what they can do. And they're asking, what can I do next?
Wow. So a lot of potential game changing. I can hear a skeptical voice saying, if you let kids have charge, it'll just be chaos. It'll be Lord of the Flies. It will be kids left to their own devices. How do you address that concern or skepticism?
Well, in my personal experience, if you don't engage kids, it becomes Lord of the Flies in your classroom. This is actually a very smart management tool to make sure that kids care and have a place and are engaged. It actually helps classrooms run better. Now, you do have to teach skills like how are you going to go outside? You can't just open the door and say, kids, go garden, come back in an hour, tell me what you've learned. You have to create structure and systems, and there's a lot of tools out there to help with that. But just like you have to, it's a great management tool for how to keep your classroom running smoothly. And it's also really rewarding. And I learned so much from these kids. I get so inspired by what they come up with. So I get that cynical response, but actually it makes things, in my experience, easier.
Excellent. Well, let's turn to some questions that we're getting there are a lot of questions that have been coming in. So I will just take a look here and take a look and see. So here's someone from YouTube is asking, how do you keep your garden going during the summer when students are not there at the schools?
Some of the greatest, most successful work has been using community volunteers and allowing them to take the produce. So we actually bring our produce to our local food bank, which is called Help House. And so we have community volunteers come in and they water and they help pick plants, and sometimes it's the families. It's so great to see the families out there in the summer. And then while we're bagging up things to take to the Help House, we also allow them to take whatever they need. And so that's been a successful model.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Well, just gardens don't stop growing. They keep doing their work. And it's just a matter of rearranging the support for them.
And then another successful model that I've seen in other places is using like the Boys and Girls Club or whatever. I know we're not doing summer camps right now, but as they come back, allowing summer camp to be in your school garden with the understanding that part of summer camp is taking care of the garden. So allowing that space for people while giving them opportunities to learn from the garden and also helping you care for and water and weed and harvest. Fantastic.
Can you list a few tools that make environmental literacy age appropriate. I think you specifically in relation to summer care, someone was asking about that. Just a sort of a short list.
A short list. Well, so the quick and simple is that you're not going to tackle climate change until probably about fifth grade, maybe fourth or fifth grade. So before fourth or fifth grade, you're just studying the environment, and then you can move toward action when they get in the middle grades, upper intermediate to middle grades. So that's a quick reference point. But OSPI has on their website, they have a climate learning page. You can Google it. And there's an initiative called Climb Time, which was put forth by Governor Inslee to give money to developing climate science education. And so there are a lot of tools that are published for public domain that talk about age-appropriate climate science and environmental and sustainability lessons that can be found online through climbtime.org or through the OSPI, which is the Office of the Superintendent of Public Instruction
for the state of Washington State.
For Washington State, yeah.
Excellent.
So that's a great landing spot to kind of find some tools if you need to dig a little deeper.
Excellent. There is a longer question here from a child care center director. And this, I think, would be useful to a lot of people who work in either child care facilities or with groups of younger kids. And she writes, we have 1 month-old to 36-month-old children of teen moms. Exposing them to nature and gardening is an ongoing goal. And there are almost zero resources for these youngest learners in the gardens. I've started a sensory garden with some drought-tolerant herbs, rosemary, thyme, sage, and edibles are difficult as they require lots of care, such as tomatoes, for example, that can't get care in summer when our classes are out. What are your thoughts?
Well, if you're talking about like an early care center, you want to be careful too, because I think tomato leaves are toxic, right? So you want to be careful if you're going to have people tasting things that everything is edible. But sensory tables, water play, you can learn the water cycle by just watching mud puddles, you know? So just getting outside and focusing on what is in your yard right there can be a science and environmental and sustainability lesson. As far as school gardens and gardening for the youngest, I love the idea of herbs because they are a sensory tool. And if you eat them, you'll be fine. But you really want to stay away from anything that would be toxic. And the other thing I love about their herb garden is they're so easy to care for that your hands are busy if you're looking after children that age. You don't have a lot of time to go out and peacefully garden. So that would be it. I think that's a great start.
Excellent. And you mentioned some aspects of schools and the COVID situation in summer, but a little bit more thinking about how classroom experiences can be adapted for outdoor education. Are you hearing any conversations about that? Is that something that's more prioritized? Do you feel like that's a way to help address the situation and it's an alternative that's more important now?
Absolutely. We have a huge opportunity. So the current recommendations, and we have to keep our eyes on them, they'll constantly change. What we know is that outdoor is better than indoor as far as keeping safe from the virus. And, you know, of course, distancing and hand washing and masking and all of those things. So if you have to go outside to keep your kids healthy and you have to have breaks, let's say you're trying not to have too many kids in a hallway in a school, and so you're taking kids outside. If you have these learning labs in your yard, you don't have to pause learning to take an extra walk around the building to get to your PE class, let's say. You can be learning on the way. So if we were to take these classrooms outside, if we were just going to thoughtfully transfer the skills that we're learning indoors to our schoolyards, you don't have to go on a field trip to some great science center. Right there in your schoolyard on your way, we're getting kids outside, we're socially distancing, we're responding to keeping people healthy and having that room that we don't have indoors, and we're still learning. Learning isn't paused.
I'm amazed at how many knowledge, wisdom bombs you're dropping here, right? You said take the kids outside for the learning labs in the yard. So just hold on a second here. So a way to think about a garden is as a learning lab. Is that what you're saying? Can you help?
Absolutely.
Take me on a micro tour. of your outdoor learning lab. Let's just, maybe you have one in mind and you can just share with me and I'll go along with you. So our audience can get a picture about like, what is this world actually like, where education is naturally leading to young people both learning and developing skills and knowledge together.
Well, let's look at like kindergartners, second graders, I think third and fifth graders. There's several points that you're going to be learning about the water cycle, right? And you're going to go in and you're going to read in a book and you're going to watch a video about the water cycle and you're going to learn about condensation and evaporation and all these things. And they're happening in Washington State, at least in Western Washington, every single day almost in the winter, right? So go outside and watch the water cycle, right? Rain, yeah, watch it rain. It's raining here. That's what the water cycle is, right? Find a mud puddle and watch it evaporate. Go back to it and see where it went and have the engage the kids in that mystery on your way to somewhere else. So don't just walk, don't just have kids looking forward, keeping quiet and not, just getting to the next place. Have them learning along the way, have them talking with each other. What do you notice? What do you wonder? And then bring it back to those activities and bring those into your classroom. And you can even do that outside. You can sit in a circle outside and talk about what you notice and wonder, and you're still learning.
So what do you say to a school principal or a teacher who says, we don't have time for this? That's being asked on Facebook.
Yeah, it does take time, but if you can build it into your program so it is the time, you'll have time, if that makes sense. So instead of, your math block where you're inside and you're doing math, you can have your kids outside doing the same math. And then you can be engaging in other opportunities of learning as they come up through small groups. So the way that this is structured would be to have a system where the kids know how to operate outside in your outdoor learning lab or your garden. So they have a station, if you will, that they do every day and they're comfortable with it and they know what to do with that station. And that gives you the opportunity to put those kids to real work, real and meaningful work, while you work with a smaller group of kids on a topic of whatever subject that you're addressing at that time.
So to paraphrase, it's a little like at least part of your education is what happens while you're planning to take the standardized tests, right? You are actually learning along the way. It's a journey. And we as parents, when we take our kids for a walk or going to the park, and maybe instead of looking at our cell phones and keeping track of, who do I favor, who do I delete, we can actually pay attention to the grass growing and the flowers and the plants and share that with our children and let them be a part of this bigger, greater, wider world that we're in. I would love to hear from you. What do you see as some normal everyday experiences that we might come to see as school gardens continue to become something that we see more often? What does that world look like in an everyday example? Would you imagine?
Well, we have, it's been said that climate justice is social justice, right? And food security is a problem for many people. And as we started this work, we had kids that didn't know where carrots came from. They came from the store, right? So I would love to see our schools growing their own food, our kids understanding where food comes from and having access to it, and having the ability to grow it at their schoolyard or even at their home, having the knowledge it takes to carry that on. It would be wonderful if kids, we were engaged in a conversation earlier where we were thinking, what if sixth grade education meant you understood where food came from and how to grow it? Like by the time you go into seventh grade and in our state or in our country, you know where your food comes from and you know how to grow it. What kind of a world would that be? We would be able to take care of each other better. We would have people fed and nourished, and we would have a relationship with our land and an understanding about seasonality and environment and what grows. I mean, we would have so many profound connections from just that simple idea if we were all able to just know where our food comes from.
I don't think it's an if, it's a when, right? And you are doing so much work to help us get closer to that place. And for all the kids you touch, in the classroom or in the in the environment and the learning experience, you're helping to make that a reality for at least a lot of people. So that is fantastic and important and overdue. Are there parents who object to teaching kids either about climate change, even in those middle school years? And do you have any comments that it's an exaggeration or a hoax? And how do you weave addressing that or managing communication on that kind of a front, if that's one that is significant for you?
Well, of course, the idea of climate change and it has been in the past, especially a hot button issue, and there's been debate around it. And I think where we go and where it's our responsibility to go is to stick with the science and teach the science and stay out of the other regions of it. So what that looks like is being developmentally appropriate, not teaching young children about the climate crisis in a way that creates fear. And sticking with the science, sticking with the data, learning about ocean acidification and what it is and how it affects uniquely the Pacific Northwest, right? And how it's an indicator of what's to come, right? So these are things like we don't need to get into, I mean, we need to honor our parents and respect our parents and listen to them and stick to the science and stick to the facts. And I think that's how we navigate those waters.
I see we also have a question that is, what can happen next? How can we include even more nature-based work in education, and that's still not being very substantial and could be a significantly greater? What would you like to see happen next with your work?
I would love to see outdoor school for all. I would love to have another thing be that when you graduated 6th grade, you had some sort of an outdoor experience, whether that's a local camp that you can go to or a park or some place that you can make sure that every student has accessibility to the natural world, especially in our cities where kids are growing up on concrete and they're not, that's not accessible. But even in Oak Harbor, we find sometimes that we have this beautiful park, Deception Pass State Park. It's amazing, it's breathtaking. And we have kids that live in Oak Harbor that have never been there. And it's just miles down the road. So this is really important. I would really love to see outdoor school for all in a way that we can give every kid a chance to engage with nature in a meaningful way by the time they graduate 6th grade.
There's so much in this. So there's experience of nature as a way to grow and learn and understand our world. There is the experience of gardens as a way to relate to the food that we put into our bodies, and that keeps us strong and that keeps young people thriving and growing and increases their well-being and their readiness for learning and for growing and doing all the things that they'll need to do to solve whatever problems are important in their family and in the broader world. All of these things are, I'll use the word pervasive in the kind of learning that you're describing, right? It's all built in to the experiences. And by the way, they're getting healthier as they go, I just find that to be profound, inspiring, and I guess, to not overuse a word, natural. It's just truly a lot to sort of try and take in all at once. And again, there's no sugarcoating. You're not trying to hide any truth from anybody. You're really trying to help people learn what is really true and in a healthy way. Are you seeing other teachers kind of adapt to developing some of the learning style or other aspects of your education program? Are you seeing that happen? And what's it like?
Yeah.
How do teachers learn more about this?
Well, I'm connected with a couple of networks. The Washington State Department of Agriculture has a school garden network, and that's a huge resource because I'm actually constantly learning from other educators that are problem-solving things like slugs got my tomatoes, or how do you get all of the garden gloves back and washed in time for the next class? So these are like the how-to questions, and you can actually network with people across the state through that method. And then there's a national method that's put or network that's put forward through Life Lab, which is a great garden curriculum based out of the University of Santa Cruz, and that's the School Garden Support Organization. And they give webinars and resources for how to do school gardens and how to bring learning outside and how to do class management and how to grow food and keep it going. But then you can also put a question out like, guys, I lost my tomatoes, what do I do? And then they can help you turn that around and give you tools.
Fantastic. And, like you've listed a lot of really great resources. And of course, I also want to mention that Snow Isle Libraries has resources as well. So the Ask Us, Tell Us on the snow-isle.org website is another great resource. If you have additional questions or want to follow up on this, that's another resource to find additional knowledge. It can be a lot, right? It can seem like a lot. It can seem like it's daunting. How do you build community and interest and support for the long run, right? So that it's sustainable.
That's a really good question, and it's a really important question. And these are big systems that have been put in place over many years by many people. And so it really is just start where you're at. Start where you're at with what you've got, and you have something. If you care about this and you want to do this, you have something. So starting there and just communicating and collaborating with the people around you, whether they're your students or the teacher next door or someone in the community or a parent. And as you said earlier, this stuff is natural and it's positive, and it does grow and build success because it is so good for the people and the planet. So just starting with wherever you're at and getting those little successes and growing from that would be my recommendation. One step at a time. And wherever you are right now, you've got what you need to get started.
And this is true for parents who are already struggling with spending time with their kids. What would you say to a parent of, an elementary school or a middle schooler who's just really, I don't have extra energy, but I really want to do something right and something good. Are there any thoughts for that kind of an audience?
Take care of yourself. Take care of yourself and your children. And that's what you need to do right now. And you're doing an amazing job. This is really hard.
Yes. So this isn't about, you have to do all these things. This is about do what you can when you have the energy. I mean, there's room for compassion and everything in what you're sharing. I just can't thank you enough for what you have. You keep giving so much good, information, and that it's just hard to imagine a better world than the one that you're kind of helping to shape in our young people. And so, when young people are really empowered by this, what are some of the things and thoughts that they share with you about their own lives that you may not have heard before?
I hear just like a casual science experiment in the classroom with a worm, and then parents are coming to me like, we've built this great compost system at our house, and I'm like, how did you do it? And then they're teaching me something that the student brought home that they're taking into their own home and their own community. And then we've heard kids graduating from 4th grade showing up into 5th grade and saying, we're ready to go, let's build it now. And our amazing teachers and staff are like, okay, let's go. So I think what it is it's these kids are learning important things, and they're changing their backyards, and then they're also changing our community by inspiring us to grow and do better and do more. So,
and even coming up with the projects and learning them, it's almost like they come back with more than you gave them.
Absolutely.
It's almost like you sent a kid home with homework and they come back having done 4 times as much and categorically better work than you had assigned them.
Yeah.
I have
and
to
writing
remap
the
my
book.
mind just to understand that thought, That is so great. So I really, really, really appreciate what you're sharing and how much you have. So let's see. Let me turn and ask you, what is the most important thing that you really want us to take away from your talk and from the lessons that you've learned and what you've experienced?
I think it would be to just take inspiration from our students and to not lose your hope and not become jaded and not become so ingrained in the way things have always been done and that it's hopeless and there's no room for change. If we all just did something small, we could make a huge impact, a huge change. We could change the trajectory of where our planet is going, literally. So if everyone were to just stop and take stock of where they're at and to make simple, small changes in their daily lives, it could have a huge impact for the future of our planet.
And changes that are doable within our reach and that we can start today.
Absolutely. And like you mentioned, those stressed out parents at home that have so much going on, they don't need to have this be another thing that's daunting them. You know, the idea is to simplify and to just be mindful and take care of yourself and take care of each other and make these simple changes that can make a huge impact.
Wow, thank you so much. I'm just going to see if we have a couple final questions. There are a lot of comments of appreciation coming in. People are extremely grateful for what you've been sharing. And also highlighting that they see how much courage and challenge that you need to face in order to do this work day in and day out, because it's not in the standard line of reading, writing, arithmetic, which is a lot of what people still view school somewhat narrowly as. So thank you for your work in kind of growing beyond the boxes that are put in front of you. Let's see if there's one or two more. I think we have one last. For our audience, I just want to say that Jody is an extraordinary person to work with and to learn from and to learn with. If you have a child in our schools, you should be very grateful that there are people like Jody who are caring for your kids, who are listening to their needs and helping them grow into bigger people. When they walk into the school or into the school garden, they grow a few inches just from connecting with a wonderful, honoring presence like Jody's. And it's something that I really appreciate the opportunity to spend time with you to bring out, unpack, and to share with a broader audience. We're seeing another comment that you have inspired me. This is from a listener named Marcia. She says, you have inspired me to use the gardens for inclusivity, for learning about plants, for recipes from around the world. So in a way, it's inspiring someone to think about how we can take this knowledge from you, from our local community in Oak Harbor and Whidbey Island, and then spread out to the rest of the world. So here we are, distant and yet strongly connected. Thank you so much, Jody, for taking the time. We really, really appreciate it. And so we're coming to an end of our hour of our second TEDx Snow Isle Libraries online event. We will be continuing our next event, talking about civility with Kate Bracey in the next hour, which will be at 11 o'clock today here at snowisle.org. Thank you so much for joining, Jody, and to all of our audience and listeners. And thank you so much for asking your questions. They make this a much more inspired and engaging experience. We really value all of your questions and comments, and I hope we got to at least most of them, if not all. So thank you, and we hope to see you again. Thanks. This is Phil Klein signing off for TEDx Snow Isle Libraries.
TEDx Snow Isle Libraries 2020 has been made possible through the generous support of corporate and community-based organizations who believe in the power of ideas and information. We'd like to thank these organizations for partnering with us. Coastal Community Bank, serving the financial needs of customers throughout Western Washington. Coastal Community Bank, where community is not just their middle name, it's how they do business. Community Transit of Snohomish County, providing public transportation alternatives and solutions which help people get from where they are to where they want to be. Overdrive, always innovating to help libraries transform by providing digital content such as ebooks, audiobooks, magazines, and video for public libraries. Washington Energy Services, providing heating, cooling, and other service solutions to help Puget Sound residents save energy and live better. And our founding partner, the Snow Isle Libraries Foundation, committed to mobilizing people and resources to expand the reach of Snow Owl Library services, promote civic engagement, and foster a lifetime of learning.